Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Novak Djokovic is an Olympic gold medalist, and it's taken me a few days to process after a fantastic two-set victory in the end over Carlos Alcaraz. But it was two sets of sublime tennis. It was two tiebreakers, and Djokovic took it 7-6, 7-6, and arguably the best two-set match ever. I mean, there's a lot of recency bias involved when these types of matches happen and there's historical consequences on the line, but I think it'll definitely be up there. It was a really high level, and of course there were some hiccups from both players at times, but 14 breakpoint opportunities in total for both players and no breaks of serve, which was just, I mean, it's mind-boggling on clay, in all honesty. So that was incredibly impressive from both players. But Djokovic just handled the tiebreakers so well. And look, he said after that it was his biggest sporting achievement in his career, which is some statement. And I guess given that he's now 37 years of age, he wasn't 100% fit after a 2-month knee surgery as well, to come out and beat, Nadal, who fine, okay, yes, not his best, but to beat Tsitsipas, who's a clay court specialist as well, and then also beat Alcaraz, who's the Roland Garros champion. He just lost to him really comprehensively a few weeks back at Wimbledon in the final as well. To then come out and reverse that decision, beating a player who looked like he was unstoppable in the last few months, is a real testament to his character. He's the only player now in ATP history to win every Grand Slam, every Masters 1000 tournament, the ATP Finals, and the Olympics. I mean, incredible. And of course, he was facing the youngest Olympic finalist in Carlos Alcaraz, who just won Roland Garros and Wimbledon, as we said. Look, I mean, this was some feat. It really was. And before the match, I said the tangible factors were against Novak Djokovic: form, surface, fitness, etc. But I mentioned that Novak Djokovic's will to win could be the overwhelming factor, because it was, in my opinion, I know he said he's going to play LA 2028, but in my opinion, this was his last chance to win gold, at least anyway, in my eyes. And I just thought sometimes, and it's funny because it's almost the slogan that they have at Roland Garros in Philippe Chatrier. It says, I think the wording, I could be wrong, is, was it victory comes to those who are the most tenacious, something along those lines. I could be a bit wrong with the wording, but it was fitting, really, that saying, because it really was Djokovic who was the most tenacious, and Alcaraz played a really good level in the final, like really good. And Djokovic just problem solved beautifully, and then he just did really well in the crunch moments and handled those tiebreakers. We call him Tiebreakovic sometimes. A lot of people will say that, and that's what he channeled in those two tiebreakers. A couple of really important points which we'll talk about soon as well. But we can talk more generally about the match and analyze it as well. But yeah, I thought he was clutch because, look, it goes without saying that he's the greatest player of all time. I think it's very hard to argue against that now, given what he's done. If anyone wants to tell me in the chat, in the comments of this video, why he's not, please do. I'd love to hear your thoughts as to why you don't think he is. But I just don't see any argument, in my opinion, that's logical anyway, that can convince me that he's not the best player to ever hold a tennis racket. Novak dug deep. He dug deep. I mean, this is always the goal for him in 2024. He said the slams. He wanted to win, of course, as always, but he wanted to peak for the Olympics. And he mentioned that so many times. So to put that much pressure on himself, and then obviously with the knee surgery to then come in and actually deliver, is just clutch. It really is. That is the epitome of the word even. It really is. Just being able to have all these types of pressures and, I would say, almost doubts from other people, and also I'm sure in his own mind, to overcome those and come out victorious was mighty impressive. Tactically, I thought he was masterful in the final, executed his game plan to a T and fought incredibly hard to keep the Spanish bull at bay. Tactically, to get into it more specifically, I mean, he was actually getting bullied forehand to forehand in the first set, largely even. In that first set, he was struggling, I thought, in that exchange, and Carlos clearly was trying to target Novak's forehand because if you think about the matchup on paper and also the previous encounters, both players have on both wings, forehand and backhand, are super solid, generally speaking, and they're very versatile. And I think it's hard to say what weaker wing they have, and I think for Carlos it's and maybe for Novak as well. You could argue that for Novak, it's potentially the forehand because yes, he can be more aggressive on it, but he's more error prone on that side. He's super solid on the backhand. For Carlos, the backhand is actually very solid, but you'd argue that maybe defensively in that corner, he's maybe not as good as he is on the forehand side. So you'd probably expect him to be better generally on the forehand side. But it's difficult because sometimes Alcaraz's forehand doesn't always work the way that you think it's going to. But he was confident in this final, and it was working. Generally speaking, he went largely cross court to the forehand of Novak and tried to pummel him at times in that corner. And he was, I think, trying to test the knee because he was trying to hit with heavy topspin, drag him out wide, find good angles, and really get Novak to have to slide and stretch on that forehand side, which is the right knee, which was strapped up, or he had the knee sleeve on, and he did seem to be struggling and seemed a little bit limited in his movement compared to what we're used to seeing from him anyway, where he is essentially Elastic Man and Spider-Man on court combined. So for the first set, largely that was the case, and in the first few games, Novak was playing better. He was serving better. I think that was the biggest difference between the two. And then Alcaraz picked it up, and they were having a lot of breakpoint opportunities, both players, but neither player able to break and get in front. But what Djokovic did really well after that first set, and even maybe I would say, towards the tiebreaker just before, was turn that forehand to forehand dynamic around. So how do you do it? Well, he dug into his toolbox and said, "What do I need to do to stop Alcaraz from hurting me in this exchange?" And he started to use that sublime tennis IQ that we know him for, and said, "Right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start to find more angles on the forehand. I'm not going to try and out hit him. I'm going to use my brain, use my intelligence, and I'm going to say, right, I'm going to use angles, drag out Alcaraz, make him feel a bit uncomfortable, and I'm going to start going for a bit more as well, though, because there's no point in me going safe forehand to forehand when I don't feel like physically I can keep up with him as the points get super long. At least for the majority of those points anyway. I don't want to be engaging in those really long rallies. And that's obviously what he tried to do at Wimbledon when he came to the net a lot. It didn't work, but he did it a different way at Roland Garros in the Olympic final. He went a lot bigger on the forehand and the +1 behind the serve, especially. But the forehand started to be the forehand that we saw from him last year at Roland Garros, where it was just like hammer blow after hammer blow, really heavy, hefty type shot, which hasn't always been associated with Djokovic's forehand. So that was really impressive to see. And there was obviously that incredible point. I think it was at 2-2 in the second set tiebreaker, where they exchanged forehand to forehand, and Djokovic just hit this laser forehand cross court. Great angle, great penetration through the court. And Alcaraz tried to get there, and he just wasn't anywhere near it. It was just such a good shot from Novak. His shot selection generally, I thought Djokovic's was good. The drop shot was right more often than not, and the same with him coming to the net, which was a massive contrast to Wimbledon. 24 out of 36 net points won at 67% success rate, which I think is very good, especially on clay. Carlos was at 15 out of 24, So that's a 63% success rate. So it didn't come to the net as much. And, I think he was happy at times to trade from the back of the court. But an issue that Carlos had in periods, and this is me being harsh because, as I said, there were no breaks of serve, is there are just too many errors at times from Carlos in some important points, and he was spraying the ball. I thought, and there was a game at 4-all even in the first set at 4-all, which was very long. He had multiple breakpoint opportunities on Djokovic's serve, and he didn't manage to break. And after Djokovic won that game, I said straight away that look, Djokovic is going to win the set because those types of games, and I think it must have been 15, 16 minutes long, those types of games that go longer and longer and longer, they have multiple juices and they're really drawn out. The importance of them just gets bigger and bigger in my mind because it starts to become more of a mental victory more than anything, and the player takes great momentum from that game, whether they win it or lose it. It can work, both ways. So yeah, look, Carlos did well. He recouped nicely. Obviously, took it to a tiebreaker, but in the tiebreak, I think just Djokovic was just flawless for the most part. Really battened down the hatches, went into lockdown mode, and Carlos just, he wasn't able to produce the magic that maybe we were expecting from him in the tiebreakers. It was a little bit loose. There were some pretty wild shots, I would say, and errors from him in both tiebreakers, which were very convincing tiebreak wins for Djokovic. I mean, it's difficult to say anything specific on why Alcaraz lost because really we're just talking about how he managed the two tiebreakers, and they can be a lottery at times. But what I would say is in the tiebreakers, the serve. Djokovic served a lot better in both tiebreakers than Carlos. In my opinion, I think he made more first serves. He also found his spots better, and Carlos just struggled at times, I think, to really up his level in those tiebreakers. And I also do wonder whether he was a little bit shell shocked that Djokovic came out and played the way he did, considering the level so much higher than the level that he showed at the Wimbledon final. But to take a step back and look at now this matchup, which is Alcaraz and Djokovic. Now Djokovic leads the head-to-head 4-3, by the way. It does make me think about the surface rivalry because in the past and even before this match when I did the preview, I said, look, Djokovic, in my opinion, has a better chance, has the best chance even against Alcaraz on hard court. Then it's grass, and then I think the least likely surface that he'd beat Alcaraz on is clay. Now, obviously, he lost him in Madrid in 2022. It's a very different clay to Roland Garros. And then last year, he beat him though. He beat him at Roland Garros. Djokovic did. He beat Alcaraz, but there was a cramping issue, and of course, Alcaraz is taking a second set. Given all the factors coming in as well, and just the fact that Carlos has just won Roland Garros not too long ago this year, I just thought, okay, this is going to be a bad matchup with the weight of ball and shot that he hits Alcaraz, the angles, the drop shot, the variation on clay is such a big plus. Djokovic proved me wrong because now I look at this matchup and I think maybe the extra time that clay gives Novak is a big advantage, and his experience on the surface, his angles are really good on clay. He also utilizes drop shot really well, which is a big plus on clay, and he served, in my opinion, expertly, I thought, in the final. And his return, we know how good it is, and he doesn't seem to have as much of an issue really returning on the backhand side when he does have the ball at shoulder height from a heavy kick serve. So all in all, now I look at it and I think, and hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? But I almost feel that the matchup on clay and is for me advantage Djokovic. I feel like if they were to play on clay again, I would think Djokovic has the upper hand because of the skill set matchup on clay. And it's one of those moments where you want to smack yourself in the face after and say, how did I not see that? how did I not see that this match was going to play out this way? Because I didn't think it would. And Djokovic is such a genius to just be able to come up with something and implement it. And then, you know, the fact that he came to the net so many times and, had so much success is just a testament to his ability and also to his, I would say, characteristics as a player, the determination, the doggedness even, because when he came in as much as he did against Alcaraz at Wimbledon and didn't work, you think maybe he would back away from that, but he realizes with the knee not being 100%, the fact that he's older than Alcaraz as well, he doesn't quite move as quickly as Alcaraz as he would have done in the past. He needed to find a way to navigate the match in his favor and make it be played on his terms. And that's what he did. He ended up going line first a lot of the time in the cross court exchanges, and he was brave in a lot of those moments, and that's why he came out victorious, in my opinion. A really valiant performance from Alcaraz, and he'll have plenty of chances to win Olympic medals in the future as long as he stays fit and healthy. Look, he was heartbroken after, but it'll be interesting now to see how both these guys come through. Will they play at Cincinnati later this year? I mean, that would be phenomenal to watch, or later this month even, given the final we had last year between the two, which was just so good. And also, will we potentially see them at the US Open? Because we've seen them at Roland Garros once, at Wimbledon now twice. We haven't seen them at the Australian Open or US Open. I'd love to see them on a Grand Slam hard court, because I do actually think Djokovic has the upper hand in that matchup on hard. But it would be intriguing to see how Alcaraz manages a match on that surface and who would come out on top. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate each and every one of you. Remember to that like button. Do subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you on the next video. Let me know your comments on Djokovic winning the gold. A phenomenal achievement, of course, and he's completed tennis. So kudos to him and to all his fans.